I should have said something. I know. I failed him. I was there when they took him. I was there and I did nothing. Wouldn't even acknowledge him. Useless. I tried to warn him from the start. Lord, I said, go away from me. I'm a sinful man. Oh God, I'm such a sinful man. But you wouldn't listen, would you? You just wouldn't listen. You couldn't just leave me there fishing. You wouldn't listen. You wouldn't just let me be. You could only see the good in me. You could always see the good in people. See some good in everyone. Even the Romans. Even them, when they're spitting in your face and tearing out your beard. Even the Romans. I saw it tonight. When they nailed your hands to that wood. When they whipped you till you were a bloody mess. Even the Romans. I saw it in your eyes. Like I saw it back then at the lake. When you called me Kepha. That's what you called me. Kepha. Not Simon. Kepha. It means rock. Some rock I turned out to be. But you were convinced. You are my rock. You are my rock upon whom I will build my church, and the gates of hell will never hold out against it. How can I be a foundation? I'm only a man. I'm only one man. And right now, all I see is hell. And Lord, I'm finding it hard to hold out. Why didn't I say something? I've always been so quick to say something before, even when I should have just kept my big trap shut. But when they asked me if I was with you, I said, no! And they asked me again, and I said, I don't know him. And then they asked me again, I said, I don't bleeding well know him. And then I saw you. You looked right at me. And I felt it. Deep inside. Like I felt it in my very soul. We've exchanged so many looks. But not like that. Not like that one. And my own words came back and they choked me. Even if all the others run away. Even if I have to die with you. I will never abandon you. And then I ran away. But you knew, didn't you? You always knew. I tried so hard, Lord. I tried so hard. I knew he was the one sent from God. All the signs were there. I saw him work such wonders. But there was more to it than that. I felt it inside me. The moment his eyes met mine in that fishing boat, I felt it deep inside me. I knew there was something different about Jesus. Something that reached inside you and showed you how you really are. That was why I cried out, "Go away from me, Lord. I'm a sinful man." I could see with such clarity. When I met him, for the first time in my life, when I met him, I really, truly met myself. Perhaps that's what he meant when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. The moment I met him, the moment I allowed him to enter my life, he began to show me the way, a way of life that I had never known before. Through him, I saw the truth about myself. The things I didn't like were now evident to me, but so was my potential. Through him, I found a new way of life. A way that I had never known before. And never did I feel so totally alive as I did when I was with him. Never did I feel so totally alive. It was great. He sent us out in pairs, a big bunch of us one day. And in his name, we could do all sorts of things. We were curing the sick and casting out unclean spirits. It was amazing to see that kind of power at work. But Jesus didn't seem at all surprised. I suppose we've all been a bit too keen on power, arguing amongst ourselves about who would be the greatest when Jesus took his place in the kingdom. Even James and John's mammy get involved. Wanted her two boys to sit on either side of him when he took his place in the kingdom. The two of them standing there with big red faces while their mammy rattled the master's ear. We ended ourselves laughing. But then Jesus said something I won't forget in a hurry. He said, "Can you drink the cup that I must drink?" Of course, we said yes. But none of us understood. We didn't know what he meant. But he must have known. Even then, he must have known that all this was going to happen. Can you drink the cup that I must drink? Jesus spoke about suffering a lot. We knew it was going to be a struggle. People don't always take to new ideas. Sure, my brother Andrew was a follower of John when he was baptizing. And look what they did to John. I tried to talk Jesus out of it, but he was adamant. "Get behind me, Satan!" I've never been called that before. I've been called a few things in my time. I am a fisherman from Galilee, after all. But I've never been called that. Somehow, what I was saying really riled Jesus. And there was fire in his eyes when he looked at me and he said, "Your thoughts are not my thoughts. Your ways are not my ways." But I loved him. We loved him. And we wanted to keep him with us. Our master, our teacher, our friend. He called us friends. Not servants. Friends. Because he said that he shared things with us. He made known to us everything. No matter how stupid we were. He never gave up on us. Jesus never gave up on anyone. Last night in the upper room, he called us friends. I was serving the Passover meal. It was the last time that we would all be together, all 12 of us, with Jesus as the host. But then he asked me to do something very strange. He asked me to get a basin of water. He rolled up his sleeves, crouched down, and wrapped a towel around his waist. And then he began to wash our feet, one by one. That was more than I could take. You'll never wash my feet. Oh, no, you don't. You'll never wash my feet. I was there, you see. I was there with James and John on the mountain when we saw Jesus' glory. Only for a few seconds, mind, but we saw it. We saw him talking with Moses and Elijah. This man was God incarnate. I'm not letting my master wash my smelly feet. Oh, no, 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 no. But then he looked at me. He said, "Unless you let me wash your feet, you can have nothing in common with me." That stopped me in my tracks. Suddenly, everything he'd said before about he who makes himself least will be greatest in the kingdom, that we must all be like little children, it all made sense. Jesus came to serve, to give everything. Not only my feet, Lord, but my hands and my head as well. I know it sounds daft. I just blurted it out. I just wanted to do what was right. I just wanted to please him so much, wanted to do the right thing so much. It was the same in the mountain. Why don't I build tents for you and Moses and Elijah, Lord? Well, that's a great idea, Kepha. I can be such an idiot sometimes. Jesus was in a strange mood, like he was tortured inside. He could see everything that was ahead of him. No one who has taken a bath needs washing. He is clean all over. Then he looked at Judas and said, "Though not all of you are." None of us understood. Judas had his feet washed the same as the rest of us. He was a mate. Nobody knew that he was going to betray Jesus. It was a big shock when Jesus told us at the supper table. Judas left before any of us had the chance to let it sink in. I expect if it had, some of us would have jumped Judas before he had the chance to go and get the authorities, before he had the chance to go and get the soldiers who arrested Jesus. And then Jesus looked at me and said, "You will disown me 3 times before the cock crows." That took the feet from under me. I've stood by him all along. Why should I disown him now? And yet, I did. I did disown him. I disowned him after promising to die with him. And he knew it. He knew it all along. It was just like in the garden, when he asked us to pray with him. We went along, but we fell asleep. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So I've been spared. But spared for what? What does he want for me? What does he want from me? Surely it's only a matter of time before the authorities come looking for us. Somehow, I feel that there is more to come. Something inside me says, don't give up. Jesus didn't give up on anyone. Will I be forgiven? Jesus gave me reason to believe that the answer to that is yes. But it's difficult to trust. Something's got to happen now. What did he mean when he said, "You are my rock, upon whom I will build my church"? What did he mean when he broke the bread and said, "Do this in memory of me"? Jesus had a way of turning things upside down. Something tells me it's not over yet.
Typical man. I told him. I knew this would happen. I could see it coming. Call it women's intuition, if you will. But I knew it. I could feel it in my bones, you know. It's no pleasure cruise, I can tell you, being the wife of a Roman governor. And it's even worse being the wife of the procurator of Judea. I know Pilate's a busy man. I wouldn't have his job, that's for sure. Trying to keep the peace in this circus. Now there's bound to be another rebellion. Oh, I know there's always a rebellion of one kind or another. There'll always be rebels. But this man's death was different. It scares me. Pilate isn't a bad man. He does his best and there's so much pressure on him. He gets a bad name, that's all. I know he can be ruthless sometimes, but you'd have to be in his job, wouldn't you? On the whole, he's always been quite fair, really. I know what you're thinking. She's his wife. She's bound to say that. But it's true. He's a man. He's my man, and I love him, and I worry about him. Sometimes I wish sageness had never appointed him at all. There's so much hatred here, so much bigotry and superstition. Fanatics and Pharisees clinging to their traditions. They hate him. They would do anything to have him stripped of his power. Ever since the incident with the standards bearing the image of my father, the Emperor Tiberius, my husband has been suffocating under the threat of another rebellion. An abomination, they called it. Our God does not permit the worship of idols, they said. One of their priests said that the people would rather die than have their holy temple sullied by such profane and graven images. If it weren't for the fact that Pilate gave way to them, if it weren't for the fact that he is so understanding, the bloodshed would have been enough to drown the population. But do they thank him for it? No. They say he's an unreasonable man, a tyrant. But they are the unreasonable ones. They are the rabble. My husband is a patient man. He's become more philosophical recently. He wouldn't admit it, but I perceive it in him. There's something ominous about his behavior. Something's different. It's like he's been searching for meaning to it all. Aren't we all? It's like he's been searching for an answer or something. I don't know what to do. He's deep. Oh, he hides behind a mask of public officialdom. But he's troubled. And it bothers me. I don't sleep well these nights. We live in fear of another rebellion. After the incident with the standards, there was another occasion. Pilate had wanted to honor Rome. And why not? Are we not the conquerors of this accursed land? He had great bronze shields erected, bearing the image of Tiberius. I remember them, how they glistened in the sun. The radiance of the sun's rays seemed to highlight the features of the emperor. How magnificent they'd looked. But again they protested this volatile rabble. Again they created fuss. Only this time it was worse. This time the matter reached Tiberius himself. He ordered that the shields be taken down, and my husband was warned that if he received any further hostile reports. My husband had to teach them a lesson. A certain number of men emerged from the rabble. Galileans. You know what they're like. Pilate made an example of them. I'm not sure I agree with what he did, but he had to do something. He mingled their blood with the temple sacrifices. The people were furious, but Pilate had had enough and wouldn't listen. He can be stubborn at times. And so, here we are in Jerusalem for another of their festivals. Passover, they call it. Something to do with their God passing over the land and sparing the lives of his people. I don't understand it much, but it means that Jerusalem is full of pilgrims and pickpockets from miles around, and the threat of rebellion is much greater. So, we come here with the soldiers to keep an eye on things, and Pilate quells the appetite for violence by releasing one prisoner to the people. It's a farce, but it keeps them happy for a few moments. A peace offering, if you will, to stop them going on about Galileans' blood in the temple sacrifices. Strange how it should be a Galilean that has caused me so much concern. Don't get me wrong. I never knew the man. I'd heard his name, Jesus, but I never met him. And yet I saw his face as clearly as if he was standing before me. I saw it in my dream. He looked helpless, a lonely man, a man scarred, beaten and bled, as if he were an animal, as if he were one of those animals that they sacrifice in their temples, as if he were a lamb or something. They slaughtered him and I felt it deep inside me, like someone had just opened my eyes to a whole new world, a world I didn't understand, and I'm not sure that I want to. I knew in my heart that he was innocent, and that his death would have some significance. It would affect me. It would affect my husband. So I sent him a note. It sounds strange. Perhaps it was strange. But that dream was so vivid and so real, I could not ignore it. My hand shook as I took up the pen to write. And when I asked for ink and parchment, the servant looked at me and said, "But my lady, there are scribes that would gladly write down anything you have to say." But I insisted on doing it myself. This could not be described by any other person. My own hand, my own shaking hand, had to be the one to write this letter to my husband. For who can know the heart of a woman better than she herself? But trying to describe the content of the dream is difficult. How dark are the waters of the ponderous soul. Then, in the midst of my recollection, something else came to mind. The face of another woman. A mother, weeping, her eyes red from many tears, but in them a sense of expectation that shone through the darkness. She must have been the Galilean's mother. I thought of her as I penned my private plea to my husband. God knows that this is not the place of a woman in this country, let alone the wife of a governor, to give her husband instruction. But I thought of her, and that vision of womanly strength gave me the courage to write the final line, an instruction. Have nothing to do with the man from Galilee, for he is innocent. I sealed the parchment and I sent it to Pilate. My husband's a fair man. My husband would have acquitted the man. My husband washed his hands of that man's death. So why am I so tormented? Yet, in the midst of this darkness, I, Claudia Procula, stand face to face with the other woman, whose eyes, though they wept, remained full of a hopeful expectation, as if to offer me some strength, some consolation. But why such hope? Why such expectant gazing upon the death of this man Jesus? Is there such hope for me? Is there such hope for my husband?
What are you looking at? Derek, God, take a good look. Have a look at the one to get away, eh? Have a look at Barabbas, the one to get let off. Well, I tell you this much, I didn't ask for it, right? Let me get that straight right for the start. I was ready to die. Pompous pilot, a purple-clad peacock, strutting about, and which of these two prisoners shall I release today? This man, Barabbas? No, Jesus, King of the Jews. King of the Jews? What's an infidel like him know about Jewish customs? Roman swine marching in and out of temple, waving their filthy standards about, flashing Rome's pagan insignia about in a place where graven images are not permitted. Ah, cheek, he's got to talk about the King of the Jews. And who gave him a right to make a decision like that anyway? Terribly sorry, I don't think we were all quite in agreement as to whether or not the carpenter was the King of the Jews. Otherwise, he wouldn't even stand trial now, would he? Yeah, dafty, let's face it, the man couldn't run an arful. Aye, well, some Messiah anyway. 400 years of faithful expectation in this one, eh? All that, waiting about for a Messiah to come and ding ding, spill the blood of the oppressor, and reign over Israel in peace. And what do we get? A carpenter from Nazareth that wouldn't even lift a finger against the Romans. Love one another, he said. Love your enemy. That law good that did him. I mean, I'm not saying it was right what they did to him. I'm not saying he deserved that. But what good did it do? I mean, in a few years' time, who's going to care about some carpenter for a scabby wee town like Nazareth dying on a cross? There's blokes out there dying every week claiming to be the new Messiah.
I'm Joe Boggs and I'm going to set Israel free. Here in a minute, mate. My name's Jimmy and I'm the Messiah and I'm here to free the Jewish people.
Hang on a second, guys. I think you'll find it's my turn this week.
And what's your name?
Jesus.
How many Romans have you killed?
Well, none actually. I'm too busy loving them, you know. Yeah, laugh. If you didn't laugh, you'd agree. I tell you what, if it had been me dying up there on that cross, my people would have said, now there's a man that died for something. There's Barabbas, the scourge of Rome. And they would run risen up in defiance of my death and spilt Roman blood, taught them a lesson the old way, eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That's what these Romans need, a lesson, not love. But he didn't. He's dead, and I'm here. Am I not a greater threat to Rome than some carpenter with delusions of grandeur? But they set me free. It should have been me. It should have been me! Why wasn't it me? Now I ask, huh? Why am I still here? Oh. Suppose if people want to be free, I mean, I've never heard so many people shouting my name. Free Barabbas! Free Barabbas! Meanwhile, Pilate, he's doing his best to make sure I didn't get free. He knew, you see. He knew that I was the one that was going to sack Rome. That's why he put me in jail in the first place. I've killed so many Romans, I've lost count. There's going to be a big rebellion soon. It's not far off. Keep it to yourself. Pass on, pass on. Pilate's not going to last long as the governor of Rome. He's a weak man. He's a sap. And from what I hear, he's walking on eggshells as far as Caesar's concerned. Oh, aye. There's been plenty of rebellions before. Mind those poor Galilean lads. Pilate mingled their blood with the temple sacrifices. Just to make an example. A vain parade of Rome's power. Didn't put me up. Made me angrier. I'll bathe in Roman blood before I see that happen again. Pilate's on his way out. The people will rally against Rome, and we will have our heritage, and we will reclaim the promised land. Our friend the carpenter didn't quite see things that way. The kingdom of God is among you. Strange statement, that. But then again, he was full of strange talk like that. He'd never get a straight answer to me. I always talked in riddles. I'm not saying I followed him, but I heard plenty about him. They say he could cast out demons. He could heal the sick. He even say, had the power to raise the dead. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but there was certainly something strange about him anyway. He said, according to him, people will come from the east and the west, and they would meet and be welcome at God's table, and those that should have inherited the kingdom would be turned away. Now, I don't pretend to understand this, but it certainly plays in your mind, you know what I mean? But he was full of strange talk like that. He always riled the heat bummers at the temple, and they didn't like him for it. But loads of folk, they thought he was a bee's knees, thought he was this wonder boy that had been waiting for all this time, and they wanted to make him king. Never offered to make me king after all I had done for him. Like I say, I didn't have much to do with the boy. Didn't do him any harm. But I don't think he did anyone any good either. He just filled people's heads full of hopes and dreams, and even our own authorities didn't like him. It was only a matter of time before it had to come to an end. But what an end. I was in my cell when they brought him up the passageway. Roman dogs! They had him in irons. And although I only caught a glimpse of him for a second, I could tell from the look of his face that a good couple of swipes at him along the way. He looked tired, and his feet really touched the ground. They were dragging him by the back of his tunic. The one that always brings my dinner was there, a wee smouty man with a wee high-pitched squeaky voice. Always kicks the plate under the door so the food all spills out onto the floor. He was there, standing behind him, laughing. Whipping him. But this Jesus spoke. He was quiet. I heard him groaning and that, but he didn't fight back. I thought I saw him muttering something under his breath. It sounded like Abba. Abba? That's a word a Wayne uses for father. You look like a Wayne getting dragged away by the scruff of his neck. They took him away, and he was gone for a while. But that word kept coming back to me. Abba. Why would you call for your father? I mean, this is a grown man. Surely his father must have died years ago. Then I thought about his prayer. Now, no saying I go along with this, but I remember they taught his people to call God Father. There was an eerie silence that followed after that. I could hear a great crowd gathering outside. But I didn't know what was going on outside. But there, in the darkness, I felt the need to pray. And the word that came to mind, Father. After another while, I heard footsteps in the corridor again. They were laughing, and I could hear the clatter of irons as they hauled the man past my cell again. I got up and went to the bars. There he was, poor soul. They'd scourged him. I could see the whitey spine shining through the raw flesh in his back. "Roving dogs!" I shouted. Ah! Oh! Soldier put the hilt of his sword through the bars, hit me in the nose I had before. I got up and I pressed my ear against the wall. They were still hitting him, and I could sense that they were drinking. They were cursing and swearing and calling this man the King of the Jews and hitting him. And then he screamed. I'll never forget that man's scream. It chilled me, that man's scream. And then he left. He slammed the door behind him. Then there was silence. I thought he must be dead. I prayed again. After another while, they returned. I heard the key turning the door on myself. My stomach lurched. Are they coming for me? Am I next? A group of soldiers came in and grabbed me, and I was too shocked to offer any resistance. Then brought out the other prisoner, Jesus. I've never seen a sight like that in all my days. On his head was this mangled crown of thorns, all twisted round and round and sticking in and out of his brown, piercing his flesh. He looked tired, and the whites of his eyes were showing. I thought he might faint, but then he turned, and he looked at me. I thought I heard him muttering something under his breath. Perhaps he was praying. Perhaps he's praying for me. I felt a tingle go through my whole body. But soon the soldiers had taken us outside. And there was a great crowd gathered there. The high priest was there among so many others. Pilate stood out in front. I've never seen the man look so tried. The sweat stood out in his brow. It was visible even from where I stood. He looked shocked at the sight of the Nazarene. He just stood there, just soaked in blood. What happened next? It's just a blur. The shouts of the crowd whirled round and round and round and round and round and round and round in my head. I felt dizzy. I felt disoriented. I felt intimidated. Oh, for so long I wanted to see the light of day, to smell the air, to see the sky, and now I just wanted to go back to my cell. I thought about the quiet contemplation I'd had there. When I prayed, when I called upon my God, when I called him Father for the first time, the intimacy that I felt there I'd never felt before. But then, something broke me from the trance that I'd fallen into. It was the sound of my name being shouted by the crowd. Free Barabbas! He shouted. Barabbas! He shouted. Free Barabbas! My mind was racing. Surely Pilate would not free me. I'm a murderer. I'm a rebel. I'm a brigand. I'm a threat to Rome. But still, the people shouted for me. My heart swelled with pride. My people need me. My people need me. My people have rallied to my cause because they know that according to the custom at Passover, Pilate can release one prisoner. And he's dressed up as carpenter in some pathetic attempt to sway somebody away from me. At last, I would be free to lead my people in a rebellion against their tyrant oppressors. But then I heard them say something else. Pilate asked them, "Do you want me to crucify your king?" And they replied, "We have no king except Caesar." No king except Caesar. Were these my people? The people I have defended against the power of Rome. Now they cry out for Caesar. Pilate looked vexed. He washed his hands publicly and renounced anything to do with the man's death. And I was set free. As I walked down the steps of the Praetorium, my eyes caught that of the carpenter one last time. And in that moment, I felt something I have not felt in so many years. I felt guilty. Like I was the one being condemned. And through the blood that covered his face, through the damp hair that covered his face, I thought I saw him smile. And I left the Praetorium. I left the crowd. I went to a quiet place. And now, I think I'll pray.
Impressions are funny things, aren't they? People talk about making the right impression, about good impressions and bad impressions, about first impressions and lasting impressions. I mean, what was your first impression of me? Oh, maybe that's a wee bit unfair to ask you that. But you know what I mean, don't you? Sometimes you look at a person or listen to something they say and bang, you have an impression of them. My mother used to say to me, "Veronica," she'd say, "you make sure you keep yourself in order. Keep your hair tidy and wash your face. And don't forget to smile. Remember that and you'll always leave a good impression. Always show respect for others and don't forget to smile. Your face is your fortune. You've a good face, Veronica." That's what she said to me when I was a wee girl growing up and taking my first steps into society. Oh, but that's Mum's for you. Still, she had a point though. Impressions are important and everyone likes a good face. Oh, don't get me wrong, I don't mean a handsome face. Some folks are good looking, but that doesn't really matter. That's the men all smiling now. No, I like faces because they're interesting, you know? Every face tells a story. Sometimes you look at a person and you can tell things about their life, about their character. It's like a mystery. But today it was the other way around. Today when I looked at that man's face, I seemed to see myself, my own life reflected in his eyes. I've never felt that way before. I'd never seen him with my own eyes. I'd heard about him though. He was causing quite a stir.
Jesus was his name. People said he did great things, and some thought he was a holy man. Others said he was evil. I never had much to do with him. I just got on with my life. What else is there to do? There's always things that need doing. The washing, cooking, sewing, the cleaning. There's always something to keep me busy. I say my prayers and that, but I don't have a lot of time to spend at the temple. Other folks depend on me to get things done. That doesn't mean I won't do you a good turn. Oh no, if I can help you, I will. Look, all I'm saying is that I just don't have time to follow the prophets around all the time. I did want to see Jesus, though. I wanted to see what he was like, and I knew that he'd be in Jerusalem for the Passover, but that I'd never get near him for the crowds. I'd heard some of his stories. They were really beautiful. No, I mean it. They were lovely. He gave people such hope. He told us one about impressions, just like I was telling you about. Look, I don't like to talk about people, but, well, I know that some of the Pharisees really didn't like Jesus and were fond of trying to trip him up. But he used to outsmart them, and that really got up their noses. He said that what you are and trying to act all holy in front of people isn't really what matters. He said it's just like acting. What he said is that people should love one another. Isn't that just brilliant? If people did love one another, half the things that are wrong with our society wouldn't happen. People would look after each other, and we'd all get on like a house on fire. Oh, maybe it's a dream, but it's a dream worth holding on to, isn't it? Take the Samaritans. Nobody likes them, and they don't like us. It's just the way it is. It's been that way for years. Well, I heard that Jesus cured a Samaritan leper. And you know something else? I heard he told a story about a guy who got mugged on the way to Jericho and was left lying in a ditch, half dead. 3 people walked past him, and the only one to help him was a Samaritan. Even a priest who was passing by wouldn't help the guy because he thought he was dead, and if he handled him, he'd be ritually unclean. The only one to help him was a Samaritan. So Jesus said that he was more like a neighbour to the man than any of the Israelites who passed by. A foreigner, more like a neighbour. Well, that just threw the cat among the pigeons. He had a habit of doing that. He thought that everyone should be loving to each other. And that included the Samaritans. Even the Gentiles. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Jews don't associate with Gentiles. But Jesus did. I heard this woman came up to him once and asked him to cure her daughter. But because she was a Gentile, Jesus said, "It is not right to take the children's food and give it to the dogs. Let the children eat first." Well, she just told him that even the dogs get to eat the crumbs that fall from the children's table. And that was enough to convince him to cure her daughter. Everyone was made to feel so welcome in this new idea of a world of love. He called it the kingdom of God. I think most people knew it was only a matter of time before something would happen with Jesus. Some hoped that he would be made king, and others hoped that he would lead a big rebellion against the Roman occupation. But Jesus didn't seem interested in any of that. All he seemed to want to do was to build up this idea of a new world of love. He wasn't worried about the impressions he made with people. Some liked him and some didn't, but he just continued spreading the good news that the kingdom of God was coming. Well, people weren't wrong. Something was about to happen to Jesus, but it was the one thing I didn't see coming. I didn't know they were planning to kill him. What they did to him was horrific. Today was the first time I'd ever been face to face with him. Pilate had allowed the mob to take him and crucify him. I never saw a man look so alone among so many people. I was watching from the distance as he carried his cross up the hill. I watched him fall and get back up again, those barbarians whipping him and spitting on him. As he moved closer, I could see they had put something on his head. Thorns! They had twisted thorns around his head like some sort of crown, and they were laughing at him. He was losing so much blood. He looked ready to collapse. I moved to the front of the crowd as he was coming near. His hair was dripping with sweat and blood and covered his face. His face. I have never seen a face like that before, so disfigured. He didn't even look human. Then something inside of me said I should do something. But what could I do? I had nothing. If only there were something, some small way I could ease his suffering, what would it be? Then I saw him move his head as if to shake away the hair that was covering his face. And I had an idea. I broke away from the crowd and I went to him. That moment that passed between us seemed like an eternity. It must have been only a matter of seconds, but what transpired during those seconds as I looked upon his face made me feel as if I was in another place. Time didn't matter. It didn't even exist. It was as if all these things were part of something more, that their meaning wasn't quite clear yet. With one hand, I brushed away the hair that was covering his face. In the other, I held a towel and pressed it to his face. Every face tells a story. In his eyes, I could see the wisdom of an ancient man and the innocence of a child. But even more clearly, in his eyes I could see myself. And in his eyes, I was beautiful. Then they moved him on and I felt myself being pushed aside by one of the soldiers, but that didn't matter now. I felt a peace that I have never felt before, and a sense of expectation that the best is yet to come. Impressions are funny things. First impressions, last impressions, some good, some bad. I know that Jesus left an impression, but most of all, he left an impression on me.